Okay, this is Collecting Alice in Wonderland Part 6, Comic Books, Graphic Novels, and Manga. And I'm going to need to start with some definitions first. Now, a manga is an originally Japanese style, usually printed back to front, and I'll show you that to you in a minute. It's usually in a comic book style of artwork. It's usually black and white. Some of them may be strictly for adults, some of them may be mainly for children, and some of them can be both adults and children. Now, this is a typical manga. You notice the binding is on this side. When you open it up, it starts here. So this is why I say it goes back to front. This is the beginning. And then you see that the interior has comic book style artwork. And then it goes on, and at this end is the end. So the end's the front's the end. You get used to it. Now, a different thing is when these are printed, some of them are printed in English. They're still manga. Here's the binding on this side. And the story is just as in the Japanese version, starts here. But it's been translated into English. It still has the comic book style artwork. And then, as in the Japanese manga, it ends here, which is, we would call the front, but it's really the ending. Now, to make this complicated, there are also manga, which you see again, here's the binding, but this one is strictly words only. Now, you're not going to find a whole lot of these. Most of them are going to be in the style that I've already shown you. A graphic novel. A graphic novel is a book made in comic book style artwork. It can range from fiction to fact. It's usually printed in the style that we're used to, the front to the back. The artwork is usually comic book style, but it can vary. So we're starting with those definitions. Now we're going to move on to show some series of manga, and it has distinctly Japanese style artwork. But these are all Alice in Wonderland. The stories can differ, of course, somewhat, but they're all based on Alice in Wonderland. Some series can have single standalone books from the series. And the sizes can vary also. Now here is a hardback one. And you see again the comic book style. This one's in English also. And then you move on to another series, which their covers are a little different. But these are all manga. Manga can cover, there's probably hundreds, if not thousands, of kinds of it. Now, all of these that I'm showing you, I have reviews up on my website. I'll put a link to it at the end of this video. So here's another series. Now, this is about a series in from Japan, but it's not a graphic novel necessarily. It's just about information from the original series. Then we move on to the graphic novel. And you see these are all comic book style artwork. The next ones are a series based on Hatter Madigan. And then we have Classics Illustrated, hardback. And the artwork style in this one I consider to be somewhat on the strange side. Here's another graphic novel version of Alice in Wonderland. Then we'll move on. There's another graphic novel, Disney. Now, we're going to move on to a series of comic books. Some of these sets have been put into hardback form, which is what you see here. These are definitely for adults. You're going to find a great deal of violence in these, a major emphasis on sex, meaning women who have generously endowed tops, shall we say, and usually wear very little clothing, or very cut off skirts, stuff like that. And they also came out, and these are from Zenescope Comics, they also came out with other series based on Alice in Wonderland. A lot of these, however, in this series, Alice doesn't last very long, and they'll deal with her daughter, which is what they made up. Now this is a factual thing, a particular issue which has a section on Lewis Carroll in it, which is why I got it. This is a different series, but it's also Alice in Wonderland. And then here's another one of the Zenescope series. Okay, there's more of the Zenescope series. They put out a lot of variations. And then they also put out one-shots based on the other series they had been putting out. And that's what these are. And then other companies have used Alice in Wonderland characters. This is a series based on Batman and the Joker. This is basically Willow from Buffy the Vampire Slayer in Wonderland. And then here's more versions of Alice in Wonderland itself. Okay, these are some of the separate issues of Hatter M that went with the graphic novels I had earlier. There's another annual, or one-shot. Then they put out annuals, which make sure people come back and try to buy more of those. And I think you can be able to tell rather easily these were not meant for children. These are basically really for older people. They put out special issues. And then here's the Wonderland series. It ran 50 numbered issues. And then there was a last one, which was the final issue. So there have been a lot of comic books put out, some of them dealing specifically with what I would call the traditional Alice in Wonderland, and some of them which like the Zenescope, just takes the concept of Wonderland and Alice and presents an extremely dark version, extremely violent version, extremely sexualized version of the story. Now moving on to coloring books. There are a load of these. I don't even begin to have all of them. This one uses a cover from one of the DVDs, and you notice they can come in all shapes, all sizes. Now let's take a glance. This one, you can see, you just color it in any way you want to, although some of them are a little bit harder than others. You can see this is basically Tennille artwork. This is a very simplistic form, much easier to color in. And this one what I would consider very difficult. Now I'm not an expert on coloring, but I've done some in my time. And this one, now some of them are going to have a mix of sayings and people. This is the same kind of style. Again, more sayings. By the way, why is there even like a writing desk? Lewis Carroll had no actual planned answer for that. This is again one of the slightly more complicated ones, I feel. I want to give you an idea of the view of some of these in case you would want to get one. Now notice this is an adult coloring book. Okay? Adult does not always mean X-rated. It can mean it's just complicated. And you notice it has a black on the opposite side. That's to help prevent bleed-through when you do some coloring. If you want to avoid that, put a couple more pieces of paper or something between the page you're coloring and the page following. This is again the same kind of style. Now some of these, each page is going to be different, and some of these they're going to have a certain number of pages that are drawn, and then they're going to repeat those pages. Okay, here's another one. They're going to also vary considerably by the size, the number of pages in them. Creative Haven has a lot of really good coloring books. And they'll color something in and give you an idea of what you can do. There's an example of what's possible. As with a lot of the other things, the scrapbooking and so forth, there is no one right way. You do the coloring the way you want to, the way that appeals to you, and if other people don't like it, well, you know, they can do their own coloring. She'll look at some more in a minute. Now these are really small, and they're called stained glass because they kind of look like it. You can color it any way you want. And here's more. And you can see coloring books will differ. Sometimes they'll have one thing per page, and sometimes they'll have more than one thing per page. Again, this one has some of the people, some sayings. Another coloring book for adults. This one is a style I don't happen to like. You might, you know, so everybody has their own view on these things. Another Alice Adventures, and this one is partial coloring and partial writing. These can be very different from each other. This is a mermaid version of Alice in Wonderland. Simplistic artwork style, in my opinion. This is another. This one doesn't happen to have very many pages in it. And you can see another simpler style. Yep, definitely simpler style. But cute. And these have two of the same thing, one right after another. Another Alice in Wonderland, and this one can have a whole lot more than one thing on a page. Okay, moving on with more. Now this is a gray scale. Show you what that means. Now to me, these would be extremely difficult to color in. To you it might be easy. I don't do well with that. Vintage coloring book for adults. And this one, they have unusual variations on the actual drawings. Another version. And moving on to more. Some of that artwork is from Tennille, some of it's from somebody else. Now, this is one I picked up at the local Meyer store. And again, this is one where you've got more. See, here's a page and then text. To me, this would be difficult to color in. There's another one, a curiouser coloring book. Mixing text and drawings. And then this is how you can get, whoops, a very small one in size. Okay, the Alice in Wonderland coloring book. Which already has partial colored stuff, colored sections in it. And a little bit of text. Alice's Wonder-Filled Adventures, which is a good variation on the title. And you see this one is only on every other page, so it would be easy to slip other pages behind it, a piece of cardboard or something, and it won't bleed through on anything. Now, as with anything else, some stuff that was originally nice in the beginning can be turned into something that is scary, as with the Zenescope comic series. Alice's Nightmare in Wonderland, and this is similar. So what we have here is text and stuff to draw. To color in. There's dots in there. Lewis Carroll. And another version of a darker version of it. Again, printed on every other page, which is something I prefer myself. And more coloring books. This is from Dover Publications. It's a mix of text and artwork. Dover has a lot of good material out, especially if you want. They have a large selection of coloring books on many different topics. This one, I don't understand. Why would they spend so much of the page with the topic coloring Wonderland up at the top? Also, a lot of it is gray. It makes it difficult coloring it in. This is another one I got at our local Meijer, and it's a very nice, some text, some full-page artwork. And then there's pages that are a mix of different things. Some of this would be kind of hard to color in, I believe. Some of it might not be too difficult. And then there's the ones that put the adult into adult coloring book. This is another one from Zenescope. A mix of drawings. I don't think you would want your young kid looking at this. Mix of violence and sex. I don't believe what Charles Dodson would care for, Lewis Carroll. But I'm not going to say it's bad. I'm going to say it's different. If you like it, fine. If you don't like it, fine. Now this one is huge, physically. Giant poster and coloring book. And if you see this, you should get it, because it has a mixture. These are pages that can actually be taken out, framed if you want, or just put up on the wall. Beautiful coloring. Alice with the drink me bottle. But it also has text and then the black and white version. So if you want to color this in and compare it to the poster version, then you can do that. Whoops. Really beautiful coloring, I think. So this is another one. Now there's something I want to bring up I didn't bring up when I did the scrapbook. This is one of the things I found which I really like. This is a mix of the story, artwork, and actual stamps. Now you can see the story is, this part of it is definitely Disney. But it's also neat that you get a lot of the stamps. The Queen of Hearts. More stamps, more artwork. And then, you know, a really large thing. This is, I got this off eBay. I think it's really neat. And if you find a binder that holds something of this size, it's already in plastic and will fit into a binder. If not, just leave it that way and you've got a nice addition to your collection. So that's the one on graphic novels, manga, coloring books. There's a lot out there, and a lot of it can be fun. Now what I'm going to be doing in the next series is covering different artists, different illustrators that I have. I don't have anywhere near all of them. But what I'm going to do is take a book that's their art and show you some of the pages, and that way you can decide if it's a particular artwork that you want to get. Artwork varies. A lot of it I like. There's really not much I don't like. There's just one or two of the illustrators that I really don't care for. But that's what I'll be doing, and I'll be taking some of them at one time. My plan at the moment is the next one. The next video will be artists whose last names start with A and run to F. And we'll just see how that goes. So I hope you're enjoying some of this at least. I'm hoping it's giving you some ideas if you want to collect Alice in Wonderland material or the kinds of things that can be collected. So thank you for watching.